And we got some comments before. So since Nancy's not going to join us, she actually asked about old schoolhouse. It's one of the, from the robotics data, it was one of the solid yellow lines. And while we were looking at that, Jeff went over to Schoolhouse Lane, which before the winter looked really great. It was a solid green road, and it completely blew up over the last few months. So we got some decisions to make on how to prioritize this, right? Because we got some talking about, and I think John's going to start off to kind of go over the history of how we got here, and he did a nice job. So we have a robotics database now that we, as board of supervisors, we have access to. We can go in and download whatever data we want, and it's a map of our entire road system. And one of the things that John did was download the database, which is a lot of information, and then kind of compile it into something that we can use as a platform. And then one of the things that I did I just compiled the information, was putting together a document of some of the higher priority roads. The intent isn't that we were going to make any decisions today on that document, but just to put these roads, put some pictures on the screen, and so we can kind of look at what roads we're talking about. So,
all right, John, before you take over, and I read your email, but I didn't have a lot of time to read it.
Okay, can anybody hear me now?
We can hear
yep.
you. Okay. I just want to make a comment before we get started here. I looked over your email, John, not as thoroughly as I'd like to, but I just didn't have enough time this morning, and I didn't get it till 9:30 or so this morning, and I wasn't up. Anyway, there's just a few items that you mentioned, John, that I think are your opinion, and they're absolutely not my opinion. Like, I know you're going to talk about that 0.5% earned income tax that Avon School put in 2006, which allowed the townships to put up to 0.5% on their own. That was not earmarked to roads. I mean, we could have put a swimming pool in, but it's just the state allowed us to do that. And I read in your email, John, 2007, our roads were in very poor condition. I've lived here 32 years. I cannot agree with that statement. Now, what I have seen in 32 years, state roads have deteriorated drastically. Okay. Some other items like the salt shed. I have always and will always think that's overkill. I lived in upstate New York. That's the kind of salt sheds they have in upstate New York. I don't think we should have torn down the oldest barn in Chester County to get that. I don't think we have that kind of salt need. And you've said this many times, John, and it bothers me that we significantly underfunded the 2020 road program. I don't agree with that. I know we only did Elbow Lane, but we had a global pandemic. We had no idea what we were going to get from the state. And it was my first year as supervisor. I couldn't bring myself to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars not knowing. So I went around and looked at the roads that we were looking at, one of them being Gypsy Hill. I met there with a paving contractor, and he said, you can wait 1 year. And that's all I had to hear, so I could learn more. You also said the goal in 2 years, our roads will be the way we want them. I'm going to be amazed if that happens. I truly am going to be amazed, because some roads are not even on this list for this year. Mine in particular, it doesn't look good. It needs some kind of application. Schoolhouse isn't on the list, and that actually blew up in the summer when we had that hurricane and that severe rainstorm. Because we go over that road a couple times a week. Those rocks, and they're huge, they washed out right onto the road. It was rain. Really, I'm sure the winter didn't help it, but it was definitely rain. So when we talk about that road, we have to deal with the water issue. And I guess lastly, I'd like you to keep an open mind about different road techniques, John. I know you don't like the word tar and chip. That's not what we're talking about. Things have changed in 10 years. And if you could go and look at some of these roads that have been done with these different applications, I really believe you might be really surprised. I mean, Ron Reagan recommended Dr. Miller Road. That's not far from here. Beautiful road. I don't know if you've gone over it. I'm guessing no, but we simply cannot afford to mill and pave every road going forward. We'll never get there. And there's other solutions. So I just would like you to keep an open mind, John, and I will turn it over to you. Thanks.
Okay. One thing we want to do today as we engage these issues, we need to be aware that the attending public does not know much about road maintenance issues in descriptive terms, as we all know very well. So we need to be a little careful not to talk over their heads, take some time to explain some of the concepts in a manner that is timely to discussion. I want to go over the history of Franklin Township Road Program. I've been on the board going on my 10th year, and I've been strongly involved in the road maintenance activity over that period. Additionally, I've looked back on the history from 2007 to 2012, and I got on the board in 12. The purpose of the information is to provide some perspective and insight of how we arrived at the present condition. 2006, the PA legislature provided an authorization to townships to impose an income tax on earned income. In 2007, Franklin Township imposed an earned income tax on its residents. The PA legislature recognized that the townships did not have sufficient resources to maintain the road networks with the liquid fuel rate rebate alone. And annually, PA provides a rebate to the townships sourced from the road fuel tax based on the total miles of the roads in the township, in our case, 38 miles. A coincident to this new revenue source, the township engaged engineering firm McCormick Taylor to develop a 10-year road program. And the purpose of the program was to provide a plan or a blueprint for road maintenance based on a thorough field inspection of the road network. In 2007, the township road network was in very poor condition. Many widely distributed defects. Because the task was immense, the plan was to pave as many roads as possible within the available budgets, without regard to root causes or premature failures. Mill and overlay process was involved, existing road surfaces was removed, and a 1.5-inch thick layer of hot mix asphalt was applied. The object really was to improve the quality of the driving surfaces as quickly as possible. So they didn't take the time to address root causes. In 2014, the road program was completely interrupted by construction of the salt building, an essential element for winter maintenance. $250,000 was left over in capital, but it was too late in the year to initiate a road maintenance program with these funds. These funds are carried over to 2015 road program. Following 2000 year road program had significant funds available, and the scope of work was much greater than previous years. We got into road maintenance, a major stormwater facility along Peacedale Road, and other major engineering costs. In 2016, the board made a step change in strategy. As the overall quality of the roads has increased, there was a lesser concern about the roads failing catastrophically midwinter. So we determined we could go slow with the road program in terms of miles per year repaired. And the new strategy took more time because we had a strong focus on identifying and repairing root causes of premature failure in conjunction with the road maintenance itself. And those issues were stormwater management, base repairs, cross pipe replacement, road edge hardening, and in some cases road widening. This reconstruction strategy was put in place in 2016 and continued through 2019. 2020, the road program was significantly underfunded for a variety of reasons, virus included. In all the road construction since 2007, high quality hot mix asphalt was used. Superficial low quality surfacings, oil and chip were not used in any application. There's an important concept to understand. Our long-term objective is to improve the overall quality of the entire road network so that it can be maintained at a lower annual cost. Here's one way to understand it. And one of the facts is the roads degrade continuously as a result of weather, UV light, traffic, and other factors. Unfortunately, this degradation begins the same day you finish reconstructing a road. So the roads begin degrading immediately upon reconstruction and continue for the years until you have to resurface or reconstruct it again. The time required to reach this objective is dependent on how much resource money you can apply every year. This process is not fast or easy to measure measure progress in a direct manner. Based on experience and a wide range of observation, I expect that we could reach the goal of a higher level of road quality in 2 years. At that plateau, we could reduce the annual capital expense and observe the overall condition to assure we maintain the level achieved. By any measure, FT, Franklin Township has been very successful in conventional paving techniques using conventional materials, hot mix asphalt, and crushed stone and the appropriate grades to the application. As a final thought, experience tells us that none of the reconstruction techniques that have been exhibited, regardless of what they are, have the normal durability advertised by the industry. The roads just won't make those number of years that have been advertised. That's been my experience over the years. So with that, we'll let David talk about his presentation. He did a really nice job of organizing that.
All right, thanks, John. So I guess this is really kind of an open conversation with this group. And let me do a couple of things. I guess the first thing is talk a little bit about robotics, and I think I can share my screen. Hey, Joan or Jeff, can you enable me to share my screen? And I'll try and.
Dave wants to share. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. All right. So you guys should see. So we have something now that we can work from called Roadbotics. And what Roadbotics is a tool. It's one tool that we use. The other tool is just institutional knowledge from going out on the roads and taking a look at things. But one of the things that we did this year was we used this robotics service to take a snapshot of our overall road system. So this is a snapshot, a point in time of our overall road system. You know, John pointed out that with time, roads degrade. So this was the snapshot about, was it October, Jeff, when we did this? And what you can see here is this color code is our current road system. It's a 5-point grade. So 1 is the best road, 5 is the worst road. Green is roads that are in good shape. Yellow are roads that are starting to show some issues. And then orange and red roads are, we need to fix them right now. And so right now, based on this analysis, our roads do need work, but we overall have a pretty good road system. You can see how we have a number of yellow roads. For example, this long road here is Schoolhouse. This is a road that does need repair. And we'll talk about what's interesting and why this is a difficult job. Is we have this road here, which is Schoolhouse, and this is a green road. When we did our initial analysis, and in the past few months, it's completely deteriorated. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. So the nice thing is, this database, these road systems, is made up of thousands of pictures. And so what you do is you take, you can use a cell phone, you mount it on your dashboard, and as you drive the road, your cell phone takes repeated pictures of the road, sends it to a cloud-based AI that analyzes the road surface. So it doesn't do base, it can't identify base issues, but it will identify the road surface and tell you what kind of condition that surface is in. And it gives it a numerical value of 1 to 5. And so initially what we did was we just rank ordered the road system from worst to best and picked the top 3 or 4 worst roads to kind of concentrate on. And then drove them. We just drove around and took a look at those roads. And then as we were out there, we looked at some other issues. So this is at least an initial priority list, and we can talk about how I came up with these priorities. But let's just start there. So this is what you get, this map, and then there's a lot of data that you have access to. I'm not going to go into, but there's a lot of data that we can go in. It'll identify potholes. It'll tell you how much cracking is in a road. It's a really powerful tool. And at any point, you can just zoom in right down to a segment of a few feet to see what road condition that few feet of road is in. So it's a really powerful tool. But overall, the key takeaway here is it's a two. We have our overall road system still needs work. There's still plenty of work to do, but overall, we're in pretty good shape. I kind of talked about the robotics and the value, and I think John and Jeff can agree. We spent a lot of time driving around, taking a look at the roads, and found that pretty much robotics was dead on. There was some problems, like if we went out if you did the analysis on a wet day where there's a lot of leaves on the road, sometimes the computer analysis would equate the wetness or the leaves as road cracking, but overall it was pretty good. As far as the budget goes, our current estimate is we have about $360-ish thousand for the road program. This doesn't include any unspent winter storm funds, and I don't know what that value is yet. And we have about $500,000 or more worth of road projects. So we got to figure out what we're going to do. And that's just, the ones that I've put together with all the conversations I'm having. So, you want to put more than you can do on the list so we can figure out what we're going to do next year as well. Kind of what we do with Gypsy Hill. Gypsy Hill was something that we were planning on doing last year, and it's a holdover, and we're going to do it this year. Well, another thing to keep in mind is as we kind of go through these roads, I've prioritized them. But if we had the money, we would do all of them this year. These are all roads that need repair, that need attention. So keep that in mind, that just because we run out of money or we can't do that road, it doesn't mean that road didn't need the work. There are some other parameters. We kind of came up with this loose system of road volume. High volume road, medium volume road, low volume road. And I don't have a specific number, but in my mind, a high volume road is a major connector between major roads where we see school buses, roads that we generally travel every day. Medium volume roads are the sort of, we kind of labeled Laurel Bridge Road as a medium volume road where it's significant traffic, but it's not a major thoroughfare. And low volume road, I kind of just defaulted to neighborhoods. Not a lot of truck traffic, not a lot of buses. It's just mostly commuters in and out. So whether that's right or wrong, that's kind of how I came up with my list. So number one on the list is Gypsy Hill Road. I included some pictures here. This on the right here is our robotics view of Gypsy Hill. So a lot of yellow, pretty solid yellow or red road. Clearly needs some repair. It's a high volume road. There's a lot of constant traffic going down through that road. It connects 896 to 841. So if you live in the township, this is you know that this is a high volume road.
Dave, can I ask you a question about that Gypsy Hill? I'm on that road all the time.
Yeah.
And where it meets 841 is really bad, but it looks like some of that is the state's road. How do we handle that? Like, we wouldn't want to go in and do our Gypsy Hill Road and then leave that mess down there that's the state. I don't know.
So I think so if you can see my little cursor here, I think all of this is what I think it stops here at this patch, right? So you would repair down to this patch.
Okay.
And then the rest is up to the state.
Okay.
So for those of you looking at this picture, the road here, so this is the dashboard of the car. The road here, this is 841. And this is where Gypsy Hill and 841 meet. And I like this picture because it clearly shows that deterioration right here. We've got a lot of cracking, indentation, cracking, and it's already been patched once. And so, yeah, this is an area that really needs work. And then similarly here, I like this picture because it also shows that alligator cracking, but indentations, right? So it's not just cracking on the surface. You're really starting to see some damage that, I mean, I'm a non-expert. I would say that this is likely a base issue, right? That you're seeing this kind of road collapse in on itself. So we rated this as a high need road. The amount of dark orange, as a visual indicator, is that this is a road that's in serious need of repair. The next on the list is a new ad. So our robotics, when we did this, the road actually looked pretty good. There wasn't apparently a lot of surface issues, but since we've done this, we had a lot of weather, a lot of water, a lot of weather, and we've talked before about roads blowing up. This is a good example of a road blowing up where we thought we were good for a year, and the road just collapsed. This picture here, it shows that this, a strong indentation in the road surface. So the flat road cracking, indents, and a flat road. I think Jeff said it pretty well. A lot of these pictures look like the road is just getting pulled apart. And so you can see these surface crackings along the edge, serious deterioration, likely due to stormwater, I'm guessing, and trucks and cars kind of going along the edge here, just kind of pulling the road apart. So this is something that I just put it as 2, simply because Schoolhouse Road, if you want to talk about a high volume road, this is definitely one of them. And so if I think that would be our 1 and 2. Then we have Laurel Bridge is another road. I put this as medium volume. I guess I think it seems like a medium volume. I don't think there's a lot of truck traffic going down Laurel Bridge. I don't think there's a lot of general traffic on it. But if I'm wrong, correct me. So this road connects North Bank with Penn Green. And we've done this portion here of Laurel Bridge recently, so we're not suggesting redoing that. And you can see it's actually still in pretty good shape. What we're suggesting is doing this section between North Bank and Haslam Lane. And here's some photos, again, of that deterioration. So this is right, I believe, Jeff, this is right in front of Haslam.
Correct.
And then this section is, where is that section? Not sure where it is on this map. Clearly one of the orange points, because you can see this road is just falling apart.
So David, can I just ask a question? Because I know this road. I walk this road a lot.
Yeah.
I remember looking at it last year, and I don't remember it being that bad. Did this just kind of got worse suddenly, or did I just totally miss this? So Jeff, do you have a sense? Has it always been this bad?
There are areas that have been bad. It's continuing to get worse.
Okay.
And I just think it's something we need on our list. Where it falls is.
Oh, right. I'm not arguing that.
Yeah, we can decide after our discussion.
I knew there was a water issue. Maybe the water issue has just made things worse over the time.
Yeah. And I think we had Laurel Bridge on last year's list as well. And I have kind of 2 points here that Jeff explained to me, is that there are some stormwater issues. Ditching needs to be done here, and an asphalt swale. And then there's another issue with culverts. I think that there's some culverts there that may need to be replaced, Jeff. I'm not sure if that's the case.
Well, I've got to stick my head in there and see what they're made of first. I believe they're concrete, but I would like to go through and double check again.
So if they're concrete, we're good. If they're not concrete, they need to be replaced.
Yeah, if they're metal, we should replace them.
Okay. So that would be their, I have that as third priority. And let's see here. Oh, so I didn't put schoolhouse on here. Schoolhouse should probably be the fourth priority on this list. Schoolhouse, if you remember, and I'll scroll up to the top here, is this long yellow road. And it has actually similar problems to schoolhouse. So old schoolhouse and schoolhouse, not to be too confusing, both have similar problems. They're both in serious need of some attention. But given the volume of schoolhouse and the volume of road on Gypsy Hill, I put those as 1 and 2. And then Laurel Bridge and Old Schoolhouse, I'm not sure how we would prioritize 3 and 4. When we get to the March meeting, I'll make sure that Old Schoolhouse is in this. But again, it's kind of a toss-up. I think the way I would rank them is 1, severity of damage on the 2 roads, and then 2 is just the volume of traffic. If we have a lot of trucks going down Old Schoolhouse Road versus Laurel, we probably would want to do Old Schoolhouse, just because that volume will hasten the deterioration. Then we have Heather Hills was earlier identified as a development. This is a low volume road system. It's a development. This was at the corner of Chesterville Road and North Creek Road. So here's the slide. It's a solidly yellow orange road system, and primarily it's just a lot of surface damage. I mean, if you go through the neighborhood, it's just lots and lots of surface cracks and a lot of surface damage. You can see some extensive alligator cracking in here, with some of that crack seal in there. And so one of the suggestions was to actually go through and just do a roll test before we do anything and make sure that the base is okay. If the base isn't all right, if the base is okay, one suggestion was to just seal the surface of the road without having to do the mill and pave, do a fog seal on the surface of this road. But overall, we put this pretty low on the priority list, as it doesn't seem like this is an imminent, it's not going to blow up immediately versus the other higher volume roads. So if it was up to me today, I would say this high volume roads are going to take priority versus low volume roads that are in stable condition. Duncan Lane was brought up. We went down this road because of this red elbow here. And so John, Jeff, and I got out of the truck and walked around, and it's I don't know if it's as clear in this photo, but there's alligator cracking all the way across this road system. And let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger for everybody. There we go. And a lot of this is because this is a slight slope and there's a lot of standing water here. And that's deteriorating the road faster than the rest of the development. So if you actually drive down this road, it looks pretty good until you just get to this one low-lying segment. And so the suggestion here is likely to do a mill and pave, check out the base if there needs to be base repair, but it definitely needs a new crown or some way to get the water out of here. That's basically the culprit. It's not volume of traffic, it's just water's accumulating here and causing issues. I put this in the resurfacing of Crosston Park. This was something that was mentioned as part of the pro organization. It's not a road, it's the entrance to our park. So it wasn't included in our roadbotics. So I just grabbed a satellite picture off of Google, and you can see it looks like it needs some work. So that's on here as a priority 6. This is a pretty inexpensive project relative to the other road projects, as it's a quick resurfacing. So, but anyway, I don't know if we want to get into this now.
Well, Dave, too, I think like if we did the entrance road and the
Mhm.
top part of the parking lot, if we sealed it, I know at least one of the pavers, you can correct me, Jeff, they said they would do the basketball court for about $800. In other words, they would seal it and repaint the lines and it would look terrific because they're already there with their equipment. So it's something worth thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I'd like to hear from because that has a number of different moving parts to it. I'd like to hear the pro group's analysis on that, because if they are going to do multiple projects, it might color our decision making. I don't know why. I mean, I kind of said secondary priorities because I was getting down to 7. So these are things that we probably could do in 2022. One is Churchill, it's medium volume road, the section between Creek Road and Queen. So the analysis that I had was that the base is good, but it definitely needs a resurfacing. And I can't speak to this, but Jeff had mentioned that this road will be a highly technical application. Everything has to go in perfect, and then the section, and then this is a good opportunity to put in some guide rails are also needed on the road. So here's the map. You can see the yellow.
Dave, can you explain that comment? Highly technical.
I'm going to need Jeff or Joan to talk about that. He was there. That's about all I got, was that it'll be a technical application.
Because it's going downhill and around a curve and down, the crown and the placement of the asphalt is really going to have to be spot on, so it's correct. It's a lot more than just doing a straight ahead road.
Have we done such a road before? Do we have experience with that?
Yes.
Okay. And it worked fine. We were spot on.
I think the issue is that it takes more finesse and control of the paver to keep the crown where you want it as you descend downhill steeply and then make a turn. So it's not the same as running along fairly straight, making minor offsets. So it's a strong offset, steep hill, and the crown's the most important thing. So you cannot lose control of the crown. So
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, and I think, because that's my understanding as well, is that it's, and I think we mentioned, Joan, I don't know if you may have mentioned that we might need some engineering help.
We had a similar issue. A much smaller road was where Tilden connects with Walker, and there's a huge stormwater issue there. So when we were ready to address that, we had the engineers draw it all up with all the measurements and the elevations and everything. And we told the paver it had to be exact. And they did do a good job, and it's taken care of the stormwater issues.
yeah, we did that job at a laser level, which you don't always use, but it's required a level of precision that we typically don't employ. David, I do have one comment about Duncan. That one spot that we both looked at, what appears to have happened there is the road is depressed because the rest of the road has a reasonable crown on it. It's got concrete swales on each side, which are all set up to receive the water. But in that one lower area, the road is depressed and then the water won't come off the road into the swales. So the question really is, what's going on underneath? So we probably need some coring there, and I would think we may need some engineering because there may be moving water under that roadway that's caused that. So I think that one's a candidate for some engineering and the engineering directing the coring. So.
Okay. So we got the Churchill. Yeah, so this again, a lot of surface damage, and so, but the road otherwise is in pretty good shape. Hillcrest is another low volume road that was in pretty bad shape. I wonder though, I remember when we drove it, we noticed the extensive cracking, but I wonder if some of this lower score, Jeff, is because of the debris on the road. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
It's certainly a possibility with the leaves there as well.
Yeah, but I think it's definitely a candidate for resurfacing. But mostly it looked like it was in pretty good shape with a lot of alligator cracking. That's my takeaway on it.
But we won't know unless we look at the base, right? So we could do some coring. Is that what you would suggest? Or a roll test or something?
Yeah, I guess we can talk about the priority setting. I think that because all of this is going to be, depends on what we want to do this year, because we're now down at 8. But I think, yeah, we would probably want to look at some coring, but at least the surface doesn't indicate the kind of depressions that we've seen in the previous roads, right? So we just see some cracking. The road still looks like it's in good shape. It's not, you don't see these depressions.
Yeah, I guess the only comment I'd make, David, is just because we do coring doesn't mean it's a road that we would do this year, but it would maybe provide some information in terms of.
There's nothing I think if it's on this list, you probably could just do a core and see what it looks like.
Yeah. I think David, I think the list you have is appropriate in the way it's prioritized. And I think it's also appropriate that you define more work than we can possibly do, because what happens occasionally, you plan to do a particular road and for whatever reason, you can't do it. And there's a whole bunch of reasons that pop up and you have to defer it. So you need to have other scope identified so you can quickly move on to other scope. So that's why it's important to have a fairly long list as you have here.
Yeah.
I think the only other thing I would just add is that this is based on the information that we have from Roadbotics. Certainly Jeff and Jim DeRazio drive around the township all year long, and they look at roads differently than we do. We sort of drive around looking at other things, but so they've got a pretty good sense of what's going on. But the one thing that really puts the final information that helps us make a decision is the physical inspection, field inspection that's done sometime in mid-March, maybe the third week of March, when the roads dry out, all the snow melts, and the damage that may have occurred during the winter is revealed. And it also, it validates what we have right now, but it could add scope or indicate more severe damage. So
yeah.
The key item here is, I think what we have is a really good evaluation of where we are based on the information we have. But the final decision needs to be made after we go out and do that thorough physical field examination. So
there's only a couple more things I wanted to talk about. One was real briefly Parsons Road, which is overall in really good shape. That road is in good shape. There's just some patching that we might want to do. You can see here along this red line, these red areas here, but overall in pretty good shape. The last thing is kind of interesting. These are the kinds of problems that a township faces sometimes that pop up. What we have here, there's a couple of intersections where we have subsurface springs. When the water table gets really high, it pushes up through the asphalt. And we have one such spring at Churchill and Hilltop, and then we have another one at Walker and Cavender. A resident recently mentioned the Churchill and Hilltop section because it creates a sheet of ice pushing up through the intersection. And I bring this up because, again, there's a priority setting. Right now, we're focusing on icing it down. So when the water table's low, the intersection looks like this picture here. A very good intersection. Everything's in good shape. And then when the water table gets high, it starts to seep out and creates a pretty dangerous situation here with this ice sheet. And it's at the bottom of a hill. Not great sight lines around this corner. And so we wanted to just take a look at it. I wanted to learn about it. So we went out and took some pictures with Jeff. And now we're dealing with this with salt. But when we get an opportunity, it would be nice to think about engineering solutions. I guess very briefly, as I sort of tried to educate myself on this stuff, there are engineering methods like subsurface channeling or whatnot that pushes the water, allows the water to channel away from the surface of the road, not to the sides. The viability, I'm not sure, but one of the things that you do have to consider is that this is a road that's in good shape. And so we'd have to have a pretty good engineering solution if we're going to tear up an intersection and tear up an otherwise good intersection and tear it up and then not have it fix the problem. So it would be maybe an engineering evaluation here to solve this. They have some.
David, I think that's exactly right. Both of these situations require an engineering overview, possibly with some coring directed by the engineer to define what the situation is. You may have to put some under drains or something in there to do that. So that's beyond Jeff and Jim and any of us to define something like that. So that's where engineering comes in. I don't like the overuse engineering, but that's an example of where we do need it.
Yeah, and then again, I put Walker and Cavender in here as well, just because you can see. Otherwise, the road's in great shape, and we've actually engineered this intersection recently because of water runoff, and it's still occasionally is a problem. I drive this road every day. This doesn't seem to be as much of an issue, at least for me, as what I saw with this intersection at Churchill and Hilltop. So, yeah. But again, I put it in here because it's a road issue, and at least we should be aware of it.
And just
so I think that's it.
On the Churchill and Hilltop, it can't, even though it's only an issue when the water table goes up and we have ice, it can't be good what's going on underneath the surface in that area. Yeah. It could be screwing up the whole road, even though we don't see it.
Yeah. So I mean, I was actually pretty, again, doing this job. I look at roads a lot differently now, but there's, it was a pretty. I mean, you could I have a bunch of other pictures, but along each one of these cracks, you would see just water pouring out of it. So it's pretty significant issue. And I don't think anyone here on this call have an answer for it yet. So, but that's my take on it. I mean, I think John had mentioned this, but I think over the next 3 to 4 years, if we kind of focus, if you look at the road system, at least from a rating standpoint, I think if we really concentrate over the next 3 or 4 years, we can get at least most of the heavily damaged roads taken care of and start really focusing on doing some maintenance. Our roads aren't perfect yet. And every winter a new challenge arises. But if you want to just rank order these roads, if we can do 2 or 3 roads a year, we can get rid of a lot of this yellow and be in a much better footing and hopefully reduce the overall repair costs for the township. Incidentally, one of the things I do want to point out is included in our analysis are some really heavily damaged roads, particularly around Glenann Drive. These actually aren't in our township. So we're going to work with robotics to kind of clip that loop out. So maybe improve our grade a little bit. But yeah, so if you're looking at this orange loop and wondering why we're not talking about it, it's actually not in our township. And then the road system, the road adjacent to it is the same. I forget the name of that road now. Is also not in our township. So. I don't know. So that's all I had. I don't know if there's anything else we want to talk about, or if there's anything that's not on here. More importantly, that we should put on here to consider.
Well, David, one comment, just before we leave today, not saying that we're ready to leave, I would like to create a list of additional information we need for the next meeting to actually come to a prioritization list, because I think you've laid out a scope and we all know we can't do it all. But there may be some additional information like an engineering assessment, coring, whatever. If we could go back before the end of the meeting and just make a list for Jeff to say, this is what we need. We can do it now if you want to, but I just want to make sure we don't come to the next meeting and we haven't really gathered the information we need to make a decision. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I can just make some notes as we go through. If you want to go through just at a high level each road.
I think too, Dave, like the first one, Gypsy Hill, you know, we seem to all be in agreement. We need to do something there, but are we going to do 100 or 185? Yikes. We have to nail those costs down a little bit too for the next meeting,
Well,
right?
yeah, so that was basically the range of bids that we got,
Okay.
the like bid estimates. And so I don't know if we can actually get a firm number until we decide to do the road, because we're going to end up saying, again, I don't know the process, so Joan, jump in. But if we wanted to do, say, Gypsy Hill and Schoolhouse and Old Schoolhouse, like we decided to do all those 3 roads, my assumption is we would put all 3 of those roads in one package and say, this is the road projects for 2021. And then we would get bids from everybody who wants to bid on those roads.
This is one of the things I did want to talk about. Earlier this morning, I sent everyone an email with a copy of a bid summary from our McCormick Taylor, who were our engineers in 2010. And that year, we had created what we said was a base bid, picking out certain roads that we knew we wanted to repair. And then we had ad alternates. We had 5 ad alternates that they had to bid on. And then we could do the base bid and choose any of the other 5 if we had the funds to proceed with those. So that's something we might want to consider when we're laying these roads out and we're going to put them out to bid, that we say, for example, Gypsy Hill and Schoolhouse, we know we want to do those, and then come up with some ad alternates that they can give us a price on. And if it fits in our budget, then we can move ahead with those. One of the other items I wanted to just call your attention to is I looked at our finances again and came up with some more accurate numbers. And the salt situation, because of the storms right now, and I do have some more bills coming in, but I think right now we're about $16,000. We would have that much left over if we don't have any more storms. So I'd say let's not even count on salt money, because we want to restock the shed at the end of the season to be ready for next year. So there's no extra money from the salt budget. Now, as far as the amount budgeted for clearing the roads, we start off with $200,000. To date, we have spent $87,000. And I always save $25,000 at the end of the year for a early storm, before we go into a new budget year. So that leaves about $87,850 left over in that budget category. Now that's assuming there are no more storms the rest of this year. So there may be some money that we can, we can dip into from the snow fund if we need it. Right now, the capital account has $39,000. I'm sorry, not the capital. The highway fund has $39,000 in it, and our projected payment from the state is $189,450. So that gives us $228,000 and change. And the capital account has a balance of $159,300, which brings that total up to $387,000, almost $388,000. And as we know, we had talked about at a board meeting previously that there is some money that we want to set aside for tennis courts and for the parking lot at the park. So when we have a definite number on that, we can deduct it from these totals, but that's basically where we are financially right now. Right?
So I think Gypsy, I think we're likely going to do. And then schoolhouse.
Okay, so just take it one at a time, David. Do we need any more information
Okay.
for Gypsy?
Yeah, good help.
Is there anything, I think, does anybody else need any more evidence or roll tests or, I mean, I don't, I'm fine, but
Well, I think.
It needs to be done.
We talked about is the final inspection could possibly trump anything we do.
right, but if we just go through
what
these
we
one at a
have right
time.
Now, the layout that David's got is pretty good.
Okay, so Gypsies, we don't need anything else. So how about the next road? So I think it should be on the list. So Schoolhouse Road, do we need any additional analysis of that? Are we all in agreement? That looks like a road that needs to be done.
Yeah, we just have to find out, what to do about the water gushing down the road.
Yeah, that needs.
I don't know what that'll involve.
So that's engineering?
That's part of the reconstruction process. If you just
Yeah.
pave the roads and ignore the root causes, that's, and you don't have to do anything about the drainage, but the drainage is probably the most important element that needs.
Sure, or it's going to come right back again.
Right, so do we need,
That's exactly right. Now, there is one issue on that roadway that.
Hey, John, you're on mute, so can you, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there is one issue on that roadway. We did a fairly big patch on that thing a while back. And I didn't look at it yet, but I assume the patch is in decent shape. But it's just a key learning about patches and how uneconomical patching a road is, because you patch a road and the cost on a patch per square foot is higher than anything else we do. So then that patch becomes a higher quality in the rest of the road. And a few years later, you have to grind up the patch. So when you think about a section of road, if you're going to patch it, you ought to go all the way across the road, not just do something down one side. Just a, a point of interest. And
John, if you patch a road, you go all the way across the road, you have to still tear it up when you repair it, or can the patch stay?
well, you have to tear it up to the extent that the patch requires, but the idea is to go all the way across the road with the patch, so that later on, when you come back and have to pave the road, you don't need to grind the patch up because it's full width.
Right, that was my question. Okay.
That's really the idea, is that
Right.
you end up grinding up something that's a fairly high value and it costs you on a square foot basis.
But if it's full width, you don't have to do that.
You don't have to do it. No, you can grind right up to it and blend it in very, very well. So not
Perfect.
an issue there.
All right, so schoolhouse is, we don't think we need anything further there.
That's really high volume because that's the road everybody takes to the high school.
Yeah.
John, do you think it would be worthwhile to have Ron look at that because of the stormwater issues?
Why don't you look at it, you and Jim look at it first, and then, but if you think so, then it's your choice to pull some engineering in.
Okay.
Right, let's go back to
Okay.
I just want to scout this out so we know what additional information. I just want to scout this out so we know additional information we need for the next meeting. So I'm not looking for final decisions. We're not doing that anyways because Nancy's not here, just to scout out. So what's number 3?
So number 3 is Laurel Bridge.
Do we need any additional?
So number 3 was actually Old Schoolhouse,
Okay.
which is not on there.
Do we need any additional work on Old Schoolhouse before we make any decisions?
Probably coring.
Okay, this is a
What do you
coring.
think, Steph?
Yes.
Good.
And
Does Old Schoolhouse go from 841 down to 841 again? Is that
Yes.
Old Schoolhouse? Is that what
Yes.
we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't looked at that road.
yeah, I'm scrolling through I have an email from Jeff that will have those photos in there. There it is.
Okay.
So they're very similar pictures.
Okay.
A road that's in, it's deteriorating.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, yeah. So I just didn't. This was this was hot off the presses, so I didn't get to put it into the report. But yeah, so we're gonna add this as a 3 because I think this is. I don't know, but we'll have to get this. But my feeling is this is probably a higher volume road than Laurel Bridge.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, right there is a good example of
Well, is it a higher volume since they put the bumps in and people don't use it like they used to? I mean, years ago, I used it when my kids were going to school, but not many cars go over it now because you have to stop and stop and stop.
But
So
Laurel
they
Bridge,
just stay on 841, right?
Yeah,
Laurel
think-
Bridge, they don't use. I mean, I don't think many people use Laurel Bridge because there's some really, even though we've done some work, there's still some hairpin
Okay.
turns. And I think if you had to compare the two, they're going old schoolhouse.
Okay.
And so Jeff, actually, what was it, old schoolhouse or was it schoolhouse that widening was suggested?
I think we need to look at schoolhouse for possible
schoolhouse.
widening. I didn't have my wheel with me at the time, but just the amount of people that seem to go off on the edge of the road just seemed to be high.
Okay, you may want to add that to the list then.
Yeah, old Schoolhouse Road has got some very narrow sections on it.
Yeah.
It's got probably just about everything wrong with it that you could possibly imagine in a rural road because of the blind corners. It's got a blind approach to a stop sign there at the top of the hill there. And so it's not a really good road. So certainly it needs repaving. But the last time we paved it, just became a speedway, so.
All right. I know with Laurel Bridge, which is the next one, I think we talked about, we need to look at the culverts and to see if they need to be replaced. I think that's just some information we need to capture.
Check out the stormwater issue, right?
And the stormwater issue too, yeah.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean we're going to do it. I mean, just like I said, this is just information gathering things, okay?
We're ahead of the game for next year, Donna.
Well, information's always good.
Yep.
I think we've always done that. We've always come up with a scope of work that significantly went beyond our potential budget. So there was always a significant look ahead.
Okay, so Duncan, is Duncan next? Which one's the next one? Dave? Is it?
Yeah, I think that's Duncan's next. Oh, Heather Hills. This one is,
Oh, Heather Hills, you're right.
so this one, we need to do the roll test.
Right, right.
Yeah, I think on the roll test. In addition to the roll test, you need to survey the crown on that thing very carefully to be sure that the crowns are appropriate. Because if you do a oil and chip on that road, you cannot change the crown by adding such a thin coating.
Yep.
Crowning there and drainage would be extremely important besides the roll test.
Yeah, survey crown drainage and drainage.
And didn't Ron Reagan suggest when we get like a couple days of rain this weekend, go out there and look at it and see if there's puddles and where it's draining, where it's not draining, and then down the road do the roll tests. So
That is, if you want to see what's going wrong and you find your bad spots, drive around. Raining.
Yeah.
All right, so Duncan Lane's next. I'm just going to keep you guys moving.
Yeah, no, thank you. All right, Duncan Lane. So Duncan Lane is likely going to be a patch because we're not doing the whole road. We're just going to be doing this section here, this little section. So we need a core, right? And anything else? Crown?
That could be a major base repair. You might end up digging that whole road out and looking at the subsoil. Be careful. Be sure that it's suitable.
So you want some cores? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, absolutely. Because there's possibly water running under the road and you may have to put some under drains in it. That probably, you'll end up probably exposing that to dirt. Considering the amount of depression that's occurred there.
All right, so what should we call it? Is core, do we need a core?
Well, it'll be to start with, but I think before you core, I think you want to get Ron to direct the cores because it's an engineered solution. And if he's going to engineer it, then he ought to pick the spots.
That makes sense. That's a good idea, John.
Okay, Ron to direct coring.
Yeah, same thing with the one over there on Hilltop. Is I wouldn't willy-nilly go out there and core that thing without his specific direction.
Yeah. Okay, so then we just go into so this Crosston Park piece. I think we're just gonna. I think there was some question about we can roll in resurfacing the basketball courts and all that. So if we're gonna do anything, we'll probably just wait to see if that pro group has an idea of what else we could do while we're out there, if we're going to do something there. So let's see.
I think overall you need to prioritize your main roads. When you look at it all in its entirety, and you start to prioritize, the main roads have to go first.
Yeah, I mean, I think that comes out naturally with this priority list here.
Yep, I think if you're there.
Yeah, but okay, I hate to be the contrary one, but if this is 16K-ish, right?
Right.
If we can do this, get the basketball court up to snuff. I mean, once again, it all depends on how much money we have. We got to do the ones we talked about, Gypsy Hill and Schoolhouse, and Old Schoolhouse. I mean, if we could squeeze 16K out of somewhere.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I agree. And I think, well, and also, yeah, when you think about order of magnitude, projects 1 through 6, we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, these are hundreds of thousands of dollars in these top 3, and probably tens of thousands of dollars here. If we can get something that's relatively inexpensive done at Crosston, then I don't, this is almost, I'm not sure if it's really a road project, but we put it in here because
The pro committee did ask us to look at it in our road program project, and I agree with you, Donna. If we can squeeze out 16K, boy, that road in and that parking lot and that basketball court are going to look awesome.
And then we're doing the tennis courts. We've done the
Well, the tennis courts, yeah.
But I mean, the whole park's now at a different level. You're doing the trails. It's a real step change. I have a question to ask, and this I could be off the wall, but I know we've had previous conversations about the ceiling and our concerns. I know, John, you've expressed concerns about ceiling. Could this be a good test case? Because even if it doesn't work the way we think it's going to work, we get it here and it wouldn't be in a person's residence. Is that, or am I in the wrong? Am I mixing things up?
No, I think you're probably right there. That this would be a good opportunity to try one of these high quality fog seal methods. Because I don't think there's no base repair. This is just a resurfacing. And so, yeah, this would be something that I have it up here as fog sealing, 16K for fog sealing.
John, do you have a thought? I don't know. Would you feel like, could this be a test case for you? Would this make you feel better if the fog sealing, performed a certain way?
There could be a disadvantage here using those because typically what that depends on, the oil and chip coating, is the traffic kind of squeezes it down over time and smooths it out. And you don't get any velocity of traffic in there. So it could end up staying very rough for a really long time. Where if you put it on a roadway, the vehicles smooth it out over a year or so, but you would never get that kind of smoothing effect in that parking lot. So it could stay rough for a long time.
I think from my understanding is they actually just do some heavy rolling on that surface, because it's not like there's a lot of exposed rock, I think, when they do this fog seal. So they lay this surface down and then they do some heavy rolling over it to kind of compact everything in to sort of address that issue. Whereas typical.
I think the other thing is the total amount of budget we have. There's 2 major issues that we don't have in our pocket right now. One is we really don't know what the total scope is because we haven't done the final inspections. And secondly, we don't have any bids.
Yeah, we're not done. Yeah. This is, again, we're just
2 major items that are out there that will affect what you do in the end.
I mean, we're not making any decisions today. We're just, here's the stuff. Here's everything. We're just getting the information together. Right?
Just trying to put it in perspective.
Yeah, I get it. And then with Churchill.
Well, we said an engineering review, right? Is this the one that
Yeah.
needs the engineering?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's the Hilltop. That's the intersection. I may be in the wrong spot here.
No, I think we wanted to have an engineer, didn't,
Yes.
yeah, we wanted to
Yes.
have an engineer take a look at this.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have to do it, again, this is not necessarily something we need to do this year, but that's a,
We need some help there because of the stormwater that comes.
Right, right.
okay, that's what it was.
All right, at some point, I want to talk about robotics and prioritization of the roads based on their evaluation. So I think
Okay,
there's some detail, but whenever we get to that point, probably about 15 minutes or so.
yeah, we're almost done, we're almost done. So 9 with Hillcrest, I guess we wanted potential coring. I mean, again, we don't have to do all this coring this year. Hillcrest was on here as something we should consider next year, as was Churchill. So my point here is we're getting down in the list where we're going to be out of money by 0.3, whatever.
No, you're making, and there's no point coring when we're going to have to do it again anyways.
Yeah,
based
so
on-
we're like,
I got you. Yeah.
I kind of,
Stop.
we're probably done. These guys are these are just for scope.
Well,
And then finally is just, I don't know if we can do anything this year about these intersections. I just would like to educate ourselves on what options are for this intersection.
well, there's no downside to coring it. It's fairly inexpensive because Yardworks has their own coring machine, so we don't need a contract to go out and do it. We can get it on their unit price basis. So if you take a coring and you don't use the information that year, it doesn't mean you lose it. You still have that core.
But could it go worse? Could it get worse, or
I don't know, but I think, if these areas that we're talking about, these where we have water running under there, that core will tell you pretty much what you have there. I don't think you lose it, but that's really something we need to decide when we're going to do those cores.
All right.
I don't think
So
you lose
the
all that.
last bullet point I'm just going to talk about is the subsurface, just in general, these subsurface springs. I don't know if we need to act on it this year. I'd like to get some indication of what options there are. I'm not really sure how to do that. I'm not sure if there's a, who we would contact to come up with potential alternatives or potential remedies, because I don't want to tear these intersections up and then put in a solution that doesn't work, tear up a good intersection. And
Well, I think you could get Ron to go out there and give you an evaluation based on a few cores. That wouldn't be a large investment to do that. Then you'd have that information in your pocket going ahead next year.
okay,
Right now you just don't know, but that would definitely put a frame around what's underneath of there.
And this one really concerns me. I mean, you never know what's going to happen in the winter, but like if we could get a sense of this Churchill and Hilltop, in case something blows up next year in the winter, and we've looked at it beforehand, I think it would be worthwhile just to have a look at Churchill and Hilltop.
yeah, I agree. I mean, that's a lot of water was coming out of that. So.
Dangerous too.
Yeah, it is dangerous. All right, guys, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to get off this meeting.
Oh, this is such a
I
good
can't last
meeting.
any longer. All right, and I'll look at the end of the meeting on YouTube. Okay.
Thanks, Mary.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks, Mary. Hope you feel better.
Okay, thank you.
All right, David, I want to talk a little bit about robotics and what a useful program that's turned out to be. I was definitely skeptical when we first started, but the color coding is interesting on the map, but there's a whole lot more to just the color, because within each color, there's a range of condition. So for instance, if you look at the yellow, it's got a range. Let's just start with the dark green, which is a 1. That's the best road you can get. And then if you go to the light green, that's like 1.5 to 2.5. But number 3, which is a yellow, which is we have a good bit of yellow road, is 2.5 to 3.5. So that's a huge range. So if you got a yellow road at 2.5, that's not in very bad shape. It's something we ought to watch, but when it gets up into the 3s, then it's significantly more damaged than the lower number. So I wanted to kind of point that out, that's in the database. I'm going to take just a few minutes to look at the data, look at some data I extracted from it. And you'll see that there's a fair number of roads that are in the yellow that may need our attention. Now, we don't have money this year, but certainly looking ahead, those roads are in our future.
So John, I'm showing right now on my screen, I'm showing the robotics database. Do you want me to zoom in on anything?
No, I'm gonna pull up a spreadsheet next here if I get Jeff to let me display it.
Okay. Just for folks' edification, when you, what John has done is downloaded everything into a database, into Excel.
Yep.
But within the robotics framework, you can really drill down into some pretty specific roads. So for example, you get a pie chart of relative road quality.
Okay, is it displayed?
So, but yeah, Jeff, are you gonna share? Do you want me to stop sharing?
That screen, I want to point a few things out here.
Yep, there you go. I just stopped
Okay,
sharing.
is that displayed now? John, do you see a spreadsheet?
Yeah.
I made you a co-host.
It's displayed on my computer right now.
Yeah, I know.
Are you having a computer? Oh, yes,
So
Well-
Jeff, he's got to do something, but I think what's important is the range of road condition within the yellow.
Yeah.
It's a wide range, and you know, at the top of the yellow, it's only 2.5. It's something we'd only have a passing interest. But when it gets over 3, then I think we've got something to look at. So
Yeah, that's typically and I think one of the things, and John, as we're bringing up John's spreadsheet, one of the things that we, you can't abandon eyeballs on roads, walking the roads. We talked about a schoolhouse earlier. That was a road that robotics took a look at. We agreed, hey, it's in good shape. And then over the last few months, just really deteriorated quickly. So one thing to keep in mind is it's a snapshot in time.
yeah, absolutely. Well, the visual inspection is the key. The important thing about robotics is it puts some numbers on it that you can manipulate. So it doesn't look like it's going to work here, so I'm not sure what to do. Guess we're done.
What I can do real quick is just go back and kind of share what this will do is, you get a road report analysis from them, and you can kind of see the overall road score, residential, tertiary, service road. Most of the township is considered residential, an average, and it gives you an average score. And then they break it down, right? So you've got these residential roads, Adam, we have 88 pages, and then you keep scrolling down. It breaks it down into numbers. So Beechwood Drive segment, 0.3 miles, the average score is 1.3. And then you can download all of these numbers. Congratulations, John. South Guernsey Road is the only one. I think so, yeah. But yeah, 1, South Guernsey, half a mile, 1.01.
So yeah, the numbers are, and that spreadsheet I put out today not only shows the stuff that's in front of us, and I labeled them all year 2021, but what we're also looking back and trying to collect some history of what we did before. And I got all those records and fields established, but we need to fill in what we did in the past, what kind of treatment. And Jeff and Jim and I both agreed that we could probably fill that in from records, paper records, and memory for certainly the last 4 or 5 years. And that would be really useful, because then you could compare a current road to what it was, what we did to it last.
Mhm.
So you
Yep.
can sort this thing, Excel, it's got a data manipulation function. You can filter it and sort this stuff. So there's some potential. We're looking at trying to fill in this historical information in the next few weeks before we get into our road inspection. Get as much of it as can, starting with the most recent, working back. And you only get back to maybe 2012 or something, and it may not be worth going back any further, but certainly that'd be a useful look. I think the other thing is, if you look at the list they put out, anything that's in the yellow that's got a 3 or greater is pretty much, should be in our crosshairs.
Mhm. Yeah, that's kind of where, and that's really what we did. When you look at, so this is just from the robotics analysis. You get these numbers and you can sort them by these ratings. So, you know, Hillcrest, Bullock, Gypsy Hill, Old Schoolhouse Road, Heather Hills, you know, Duncan Lane. The way we came up with these lists, it wasn't a secret. You know, we just said, okay, well, if we're going to go for a drive, where should we drive? And we just looked at these roads. And what's kind of cool about this is just from what I like looking at the data is, as you I don't think I want Agile Mapper, is when you look at the roadway system as it loads. Oh man. I lost my, oh, there it is. There we are. So if you go to Gypsy Hill Road, you can actually select the road segment and click the view segments. And it pops up these little dots.
Yeah.
And that'll give you a picture of that road segment in that dot.
I can't see what he's displaying right now.
Oh, it's a shame, yeah.
This thing,
Oh, I'm sorry, you're not, is it?
my computer's stuck in some share, but it's not sharing, so he's.
Oh. So anyway, yeah, so this
Yeah, I
is where
see.
I got the photos. So you can
Yeah, I
go
see.
right down, you want to zoom in on this red
Yeah.
spot, you can see the red spot and why it was red, right? Alligator cracking.
Yeah, it's an incredibly useful tool. The only thing, it's limited in just, it just indicates the visual
Right.
look of the surface, which is important because it points you to the issues. So I think just validating the thing further, when you and I and Jeff went out on that excursion in January,
Yeah.
you and Jeff were pretty innovative, and able using a cell phone and an iPad to display the robotics database. And as we drove around, what we saw in the roadways are pretty much validated by what was in robotics display. So
Yeah. And I think that's kind of what's great about it is this visual tool, right? So you can kind of look at this segment and say, yeah, you're right, there's surface cracking, but you're also seeing some indentation, you know, so it's pretty valuable, I think. And it was definitely worthwhile. And it all dumps it, as John said, into a nice spreadsheet that you know, analyzes the percent of cracking and percent deterioration, so you can really dig in to the numbers. It'll actually alert you to potholes. If it sees a pothole, it'll tell you, you know, you got 5 potholes. And then the report's great. So all downloadable into Excel. So at some point, probably not next year or the year after, but probably every, you know, 4 or 5 years is probably useful exercise to keep revisiting this. Just so we can see year over, you know, not year over year, but, you know, every 3 or 4 years, is the road system getting better, right? Or are we accomplishing our goal, right? So.
see, David, there's one other comment. It's a tool I was using in the last few days that would be very useful to any of us if you can get it installed and working. I was using Google Earth, And Franklin Township has a set of overlays in Google Earth, which essentially overlays all the property lines of the township. And also you can click on the property and it gives you information about the property. What was incredibly useful is that you could copy the coordinates out of a cell in a spreadsheet or the database and paste it into Google Earth, and it would display that exact spot. So you could very quickly find out each segment that they defined, where it was by pasting it in there. I did send you the overlays. So if you install Google Earth and then install those overlays, you would find that to be a very useful tool.
Yeah, I think I think I saw that post. I think you sent me something earlier today. It's very interesting.
Yeah, if you have trouble with Joan can step you through that, how to get those overlays into Google Earth. It's pretty easy. You collect them as a mass and you drop them into the My Places box or something. So anyway, that's a useful tool for any of us if you want to really find a spot on the map that's in the that's in the robotics database. Okay, that's pretty much what I have. I think we're.
Yeah, I think we kind of walked through everything that we needed to walk through. And then provided, knock on wood, and no other roads blow up, I think we have a good starting point for the March discussion.
Well, we haven't had that happen for a while, although this Schoolhouse Road is surprising.
Joe, just one more thing to add to the list of information we need for the next meeting. I know you took us through where the money is, but of course you'll have a better idea then. So maybe right before that March, whenever the next meeting is, just do exactly what you just did before, lay out where everything is. And I think that would be really helpful. So we at least have a sense of what the pot looks like. We may need to have a discussion about, do we want to spend the whole pot? I want to spend as much of it as I can, but we're a 5-member board. So we'll have to have that conversation. And I think we'll be in a good place with the additional information to make some choices. So
Ultimately, when you define the scopes and have the bids in hand and their actual prices, then you will start to make those decisions.
Yeah, I agree. I think, but the next meeting is going to be a pretty good step. I mean, to agree how much we want to spend ish. And then,
yeah, I mean, I might be naive, but if you look at the top 3 priorities, if we decide those are the roads, I mean, I'll be surprised if we can get all 3 of those roads done. Those aren't cheap. So.
There's nothing cheap about it. And,
oh, John, you're on mute.
There's nothing cheap about it, and it goes slowly. I mean, you improve it slowly. So it takes a while to be able to see the effect. So we have to be very deft and dedicated to maintain a certain level of maintenance here. Because if you let it slip by you, you might not notice it right away, but by the time you'll be scrambling to catch up, and you may not have the money to catch up. We're losing disposable income in capital funds as the years go on here, as other costs rise around us, especially emergency service. So we need to be careful with the money we have and spend it wisely. I don't really have anything else.
well, David, as the vice chair, do you want to bring us to a close, or do we have to talk? Do we need public comments? I don't even know if there's any public.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if there's any public comment, Jim, you might be the only public in the meeting. So if you have anything you want to add to this discussion, you've been responsible for a lot of the road work we've done over the past few years to get us to where we are today. So if there's anything you want to say, you can now.
No, I'm good. Everything sounds good. Sounds like you got a plan coming on.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, and appreciate the time. We did go through a lot of information today. We're gonna get to do it again in March. So thanks everybody for spending your Friday afternoon.
All right, have a great weekend.
Thanks, you do the same.
Thank you.